With all the developments of the Fatui throughout the Archon quests, it's actually fascinating to consider that they're only one of two major antagonistic factions in Genshin Impact. The Abyss, for all of its worth, has been a brewing presence at the back of the story that never really got to properly flourish in the recent storylines. Considering their history, the Abyss is a series of stories rather than a coherent narrative, unlike the Harbingers being a constant thorn at the traveler's side. But despite their fragmented absence, the Abyss is one of the deadliest entities that walk Teyvat. And today, I want to ask the fascinating question, what happened to the Abyss Order? Or more specifically, what will happen to the Abyss Order? But before we begin, when I'm taking a break from reading about Genshin stuff, I open up Onestate. Onestate is the first ever open world game with roleplay mode. This is the first time I've seen something like this on a phone, and just look at this.
Wait, I probably shouldn't have done that.
Pucker up, buckaroo!
God, he just wailed on that guy. I said.
God, these people are relentless. Get away from me! Deja vu. I've just been in this place before.
If you honestly think that more cars is gonna stop me, both of you do some. See, never mind, I'm fine.
Hundreds of people on one map, and thousands of people can play together at the same time. You can build a career as a policeman and lead a faction, or join a gang and lead a criminal lifestyle. Or you can be a hard worker slowly organizing your business and trading with other players. It all depends on you. Also, the game is optimized for different types of devices, so everyone can play comfortably. Onestate is absolutely free and does not have annoying ads like other games. Download Onestate from the link in the description now and come to play with me. For the first players, I will leave my promo code as a gift. Now, I'd like to preface this video with several disclaimers. I will not be going into any leaks or data mined information, and almost all of the info up to a certain point will be speculation and just piecing together lore that we know from the game itself. So let's answer the fascinating question. The core of the Abyss's motivations can be summarized into two statements that were stated by the sibling over the course of the Archon quest interludes: engulfing the thrones and restoring the homeland. These are the core principles that every Abyss project we've seen so far encapsulate. Engulfing the throne is a vague statement given by the sibling during the We Will Be Reunited storyline. The word throne is what we should focus on because over the course of Genshin's story, we've seen this word used in two contexts. The first is potentially a literal seat, or a coveted position of power that can be attained. This was mentioned by Dainsleif during the Teyvat chapter storyline preview, in which he stated the throne in the sky is not reserved for you. Soraya, in the world quest Treasure Lost, Treasure Found, also stated that the Archon War was a protracted war erupted between the gods, each of whom coveted a seat at one of the divine thrones in Celestia. The truth of that statement, however, is unknown, considering that Soraya is immortal in and of herself. However, in the artifact set Flower of Paradise Lost, the three ruling bodies of Sumeru shared their thrones amongst themselves, and this can be seen in the new location. I quote, "King Deshret allowed his throne to be shared with two others. The Jinn bequeathed a throne inlaid with emeralds and rubies to celebrate the union between the three friends. The three friends being the Goddess of Flowers, the Greater Lord, and King Deshret." But the word throne also has another meaning. The biblical context of the word throne was opened in the book Before Sun and Moon, in which throne was the word used to describe the otherworldly beings that entered into Teyvat's realm. In Christian angelology, a throne is a classification of angels and are depicted as great wheels containing many eyes. They reside in the realm of the cosmos, where material form begins to take shape, and they mete out divine judgment and maintain the cosmic harmony of all universal laws. In the context of Genshin, it's possible that the superior gods, or the four shades of Phanis, are derivations of this throne, considering another term for them are heavenly principles. To engulf the throne could easily mean both of these meanings, as we've seen previous projects of the Abyss embody this prerogative. The next principle is to restore the homeland. This motivation actually goes as far back as the Mondstadt Archon quest, and only further cemented with the 2.6 Chasm Archon quest interlude. The Abyss sibling states that they've lost their sight on their true goal because of fixation on their revenge towards the gods. This motivation is what made them seek out the abandoned civilization in the chasm that was meant to allegedly cleanse the curse that befell upon them, only to be stopped by Halfdan. It's possible that to restore the homeland, they needed to address three important factors: the curse of immortality, or whatever curse befell upon the people that turned the Conrians into abyssal entities, the remnants of the actual ruins of Conria's location, and the power within them as abyssal creatures. So now that we've further contextualized those, I want to list the Abyss's past and current plans that were attempted throughout the story. This is so we can get a wider view, and pattern out our speculations accordingly with the proper justifications based on their old actions. The Abyss had plans to subjugate the companions of Barbados, namely Andreas and Devalin, by promising them immense power and gratification beyond Barbados's care. They also planned to create a mechanized god by stealing a statue of the Seven and using it as a battery for the project known as the Loom of Fate. They also wanted information on Celestia that seemed to be hidden away in books and fairy tales. We've been told by Nahida that fairy tales can be rooted in a semblance of truth, and this is further supported by Venti and Zhongli's philosophies of ballads and performances. In the context of the Abyss, the clearest example of this ploy was Enjo's excursion to Enkanomiya to find the book before Sun and Moon. Granted, this trip may or may not have been motivated by Abyss Order duties. To be fair, Enjo was such a wild card who doesn't particularly regard the Highness to the same regard as the other Abyss monsters, but it's still a valuable piece of information. Though another fascinating tidbit is the fact that the Abyss Mage in Lisa's story quest wanted the book known as The Pale Princess and the Six Pygmies. We only have access to the first volume, but we see the summarized notes of the other volumes to come. The first volume speaks of the story of the Land of Night and the Moonlit Forest, of a Night Mother who was the source of all sins, and the Land of Night, which was the embodiment of all her evils. The next volumes speak of the following: the Pale Princess meeting someone known as the Light Prince, the Pale Princess and the Light Prince's decision to save the Moonlit Forest, the meeting of the Six Pygmies, the Six Pygmies' sinister scheme and implementation, and the prophecy of the Night Mother. What in the world these stories mean, or why the Abyss Mage wants them, is unknown and is going to be a story for another day. Regardless, the Abyss Mage Emery states that there's a secret inside the first volume that was presumably important to the Order. The next exploit they had was in the 2.6 Archon quest with the attempted removal of the Curse of Immortality and the amplification of the mysterious runes' cleansing abilities. But that's mostly it. They've had their small appearances every now and then in commissions and story quests where they're just meandering around or causing general trouble in Teyvat, but nothing massive enough to warrant a quest in and of itself. So the question is, what would they do in the future? And this is where we put on our tinfoil hats and begin the long tale of theorizing. I have several ideas of what the Abyss could do, or even should be doing if they really wanted to push through with their plans of revenge against the gods. First is to continue their theme of mechanization, and not just in terms of god mechanization. The Abyss Order has always had this theme of artificiality, from their Ruben machinations to the fact they're able to manipulate the elements without the need of visions, and this ties in with their Conrian origins. Conrians were known as inventors and creators that couldn't completely rely on the mercy of the Seven, considering they were an ancient civilization that moved without an archon. It also didn't help that Conria itself was known as an underground nation with little to no fauna and plant life. As such, the art of chemia, puppet-making techniques, and ruin machine creations thrived. Actually, it would be a great idea for them to expand on a certain field of study that Conrians used to do in the past. Biomimesis was a term used in the descriptions of the Ruin Crusaders, Defenders, Destroyers, and Scouts. Biomimesis, or biomimicry, is the emulation or replication of the models and elements of nature for the purpose of solving complex human problems. It's not a coincidence that the Ruin Defender looked like a crab, or a Ruin Scout looked like a jellyfish. That was purposefully created to be like that. The insect-like limbs are more agile than humanoid machines. The shield formed by its various components can resist any frontal attack. The inspiration for its decentralized design and combat modes seem to have come from honeybee colonies, rendering it able to change forms and to attack from different directions. Now take this concept of biomimicry to a whole new level by recreating a god. In turn, the project is known as the Loom of Fate. We actually know that this project is very much plausible, especially with the drop of the Balladeer boss fight. A fascinating part about this project is that the Shoki no Kami origins are actually a mix of three important factors: puppet-making techniques from Conria, A's own divine power, and Fatui amplification. All things considered, the Abyss Order actually has all of the components to execute the Loom of Fate, because need I remind you that the Traveler in Paimon just left this thing in the ruins? Like, Huh? Dane ran after the sibling and then we just ended the quest without actually having a proper resolution. So with all this time of the Fatui creating the balladeer, the Abyss could easily just be getting back Asiel's remains and creating the mechanized god because somebody forgot to turn off the sus Barbados statue. Anyway, I digress. Let's hope this thing doesn't explode, you know? The second potential plan is the reversal of fate. We've mentioned that the name of the plan is the Loom of Fate, but I want to ask why. Well, the Loom of Fate has actually been mentioned a long time ago prior to 1.4 in the Traveler's character story. There is a locked section of the Traveler's story regarding what is known as the Loom of Fate. My theory is that the Loom of Fate, as a grander concept, could also tie in with Abyss Order's want to resolve the state of Conria to its former glory. We know that the constants of Teyvat, time, fate, and knowledge control the inevitable cogs of destiny for each individual in Teyvat. And perhaps by creating a false god, they're one step closer to their true goal of restoration. Fate is such a powerful concept in Teyvat alongside time, so it's possible that one way of fixing Conria for good is by returning to the age before the Cataclysm, or by somehow altering the destinies of the people involved so that they either didn't turn into the Abyss monsters, or the Cataclysm never happened in the first place. I stated this in another video in which the Traveler siblings' fate could have been readjusted by an external factor altogether, and I won't go on to full detail about it here, but if it's possible to alter the memories and existence of one person through the Irminsul, it could also be possible that a stronger force alters the concrete and objective history and fate altogether. The third potential plan that I can see for the Abyss is targeting the forbidden knowledge of Sumeru, or more specifically, King Deshret and the Irminsul. The Abyss has time and time again expressed how they are eager to learn more about Celestia by any means necessary. So to learn more about a civilization that fell into ruin after their god allegedly revealed to them otherworldly knowledge would be a fascinating feat. Let's start with the easier argument, King Deshret's civilization. The Abyss studying the otherworldly information would actually not be that difficult of a feat considering most of the downsides are inconsequential to the Order. If the people of the old civilization went mad as a result of this information, then certainly the Abyss Order wouldn't care considering they're not really human anymore, and the damage has already been done. There wouldn't really be any struggle besides the intervention of the Traveler. Though it's not to say that the information is 100% worthwhile though, but if it has something to do with what the God of Flowers stated, then it's worth learning about. Information about the invaders from the other worlds, the Seelie Kingdom, the Master of the Heavens, and the Four Shades. This could even be the information that Rhindaughter used to create Durin and the Rift Towns. The possibilities are endless, and the speculations are just grains of sand in a whole desert. As for the Irminsul, this is where this gets a bit iffy. How they would even get access to this information is unknown, considering the Torah never had direct access to the Irminsul as far as we're aware of. So for the Abyss Order to have the same access is also questionable because they'd have to go through both Nahida and the Wanderer. But in the event that they could, it would be something along the lines of abyssal corruption, similar to how the Irminsul was 500 years ago. Consider this. The Irminsul is home to all forms of information about the archons and every creature that was created or born in Teyvat. If they somehow tapped that information, they'd have access to all the demon gods that have ever existed, even those lost in the records of the war. If their plan was the weaponization of old spirits like Asiel, Andreas, and Devalin, then access to more remnants of gods and their whereabouts would be indispensable. But again, the problem with this path of thinking is that they'd have to somehow connect with the Irminsul, and we don't know a way of doing that besides the current powers of Nahida and, to a lesser extent, Wanderer. Other smaller projects they can pursue are Durin, which I'm actually surprised hasn't been an abyssal plot yet, considering Durin is already a corrupted beast and the remnants of his existence still flourish across Dragonspine to this day. Kaya and Albedo's storylines are still a mystery in and of themselves, so we'll just have to wait for future updates to see what in the world is going on. Now before I end this video, I'd just like to say a few final questions that lingered in my mind while making this. These questions have no bounds whatsoever or any grounds for evidence, but I'm just genuinely curious how you guys would answer these questions. Number 1 is why not team up with the Fatui from a practical standpoint? In hindsight, the Fatui and the Abyss actually share a lot of similarities when it comes to their motivations, or at least on paper. A Fatui and Abyss combination would absolutely be devastating because of their sheer power, and the only thing that's really stopping them is the clash of personalities. Kero was known as a Conrayan traitor and potentially holds resentment, while characters like Scaramouche and Tartaglia have actively gone to the Abyss to fight against the monsters, and La Señora's history with the Abyss is beyond repairable. But from a practical standpoint, the Fatui and the Abyss could be a match made in hell. The Fatui have dabbled in god mechanization, while the Abyss have decades worth of technology that the Fatui would happily use. There has to be a reason that Dottore and Sandrone are fascinated with ruin machines. So the only thing that's really stopping a Fatui Abyss collaboration is this very thick veil of abhorrence between the two parties. Number 2 is, will they recruit the Traveler? This is a very fascinating question because there are two important points of consideration. The Abyss sibling holds no true resentment for the Traveler so far, and simply asks for the Traveler not to intervene. The Traveler, on the other hand, thinks that their sibling's ideology of pursuing the 1% of salvation is ludicrous and downright suicidal. But the real question is, what would happen if the Abyss welcomes the Traveler, or the sibling asks the Traveler to actively fight by their side once they find the truth of the world? Would the Traveler have enough connection and emotional investment in Teyvat to consider protecting it from their own sibling? And will the sibling even consider the potential liability that is the Traveler, considering how many times their plans have been foiled by them? Number 3 is that, is there something greater than the Abyss sibling? This has been a question that has been boiling in the back of my mind ever since the consideration that Conria has a ruler, and that the trailer for the Battle Pass showed a grander entity hiding in the Abyss. Is the Abyss sibling just working with another more powerful god? I'm almost inclined to believe that yes, because of several reasons. I find it more plausible that the Abyss sibling was found by this ruler of the Order rather than starting the Order themselves, because Venti and Kaya only recently heard of their presence. Granted, Venti has been asleep, but Kaya being late to the information network is quite suspicious. The sibling is also known as Highness but never explicitly said as the ruler of the Order, just one of the higher-ups. It's possible that the relationship of the sibling to the ruler is like the Harbingers to the Tsaritsa. A larger entity or god presiding over the Abyss would also support the idea that the Six Pygmies book contains a secret, considering that there is such a thing as a Night Mother that allegedly is the root of all evil. But that's it for me today. Just a bunch of analyses regarding the Abyss Order since it's been so long since we've seen them, and I really do miss those furry little bastards. Anyway, my name is Aster, and thank you to Onestate for sponsoring this video, and thank you all for chilling with me. Happy February! The Six Pygmies' sinister... The Six Pygmies' sinister... Oh my fucking god! The Six Pygmies' sinister scheme and implementation, and the... I'm so sorry.